my very great pleasure to be chairing the session this morning, and as Alan says, pleased to see so many survivors from last night. That was by far the best conference dinner I've ever been to at any conference I've ever attended, and I can give you the hard factual evidence for that, actually, because it's a well-known fact that no matter how good the band are, I never dance. But beyond that, it doesn't matter how good the band is. David Ray never dances. He'll do a Scottish ceilidh and that's his limit, but there we were. But 3 out of 3 for the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh, because our talented young superstar doesn't just dance, but, well, should he stay or should he go? I'll leave it up to you. He should stay, and next time in the conference we'll put him up first and see what else he can do. Anyway, it was a really, really great evening. And then we have, in fact, in the programme, Alan has very wisely saved the best to last in our plenary speakers, and we've got 3 people who are all very good friends of mine, and a pleasure to be able to introduce them all. So a really exciting session ahead. And we'll get started then by welcoming Chen Jin, who is the director of Sichuanbanar Tropical Botanic Garden in Yunnan. He also is the president of the recently established Chinese Union of Botanical Gardens, and he's the chairman of the working committee for the Chinese Academy of Sciences Gardens. Sichuanbanar, if you've not been lucky enough to be there, is one of the most impressive and beautiful tropical botanic gardens and botanic gardens in general. And they are hosting a really important conference on climate change in botanic gardens in 2014 in January next year. So if you haven't been, make that conference the occasion when you get there for the first time. It's really wonderful. I'm looking forward to being there myself. Anyway, please join me in welcoming Chen Jin.
Thanks, Stu. Good morning, everyone. I'm from Sichuanbanar. I noticed some of my foreign colleagues got difficulty to pronounce Sichuanbanar properly, but Steve do a very good job. Actually, it's a name from the local language. So if you cannot pronounce Sichuanbanar, but you can easily XTBG for my botanic garden. So today I'm discussing with you with the title, How to Be a Conservation Garden. So basically, either from the definition of the botanic garden, the conservation has been considered as the very fundamental component for the function. And also we noticed there are a couple of international documentations or agendas always emphasize the importance of conservation. So from this classical literature, you probably also noticed we do have a type called the conservation garden. So people may argue, is that still necessary to discuss how to be a conservation garden? So the first part of my talk is why a conservation-oriented garden needed. So we said, even from the history of the botanic garden, the development of the botanic garden originally, it's not always, or many cases, it's not for conservation. So this is the one reason. And also we noticed that today's distribution of the botanic garden worldwide, it's not such properly in according with the plant diversity. And even the new establishment of the botanic garden, especially in China, the setup of the botanic garden, it's often oriented by the development of the city, urbanization, display. So the conservation is not the real main reason for setup of the botanic garden. So again, the climate change call for the new actions, and later on I will discuss with this. So with these reasons, we may say, okay, it still needs more discussion on the principles, guidelines, and the practices for conservation-oriented botanic garden. So this is a map, easy to see. So this is the distribution of the plant diversity. So the red color those are very plant diversity rich area. But if we look at the botanic garden, so the North America, Europe, many other botanic garden distribution. So I think this is a very obvious, also another discussion already happened. So the distribution of the botanic garden, it's not such kind of balance with the diversity distribution. So in this literature, you may see actually the botanic garden density, the GDP per capita, and the population density provided a good explanation to the botanic garden density. The more higher population density, the more botanic garden. The more higher GDP per capita, the more botanic garden. As in the Steve's talk, he briefly mentioned the one work conducted by my colleagues to try to figure out the whole list for the red list in China. So this is a work, and roughly 11% of the total native plant species has been considered as these three categories, based on IUCN category, so which is 3,700. What I want to mention here, it's they also have the information to understand that based on the expertise, comments or suggestions, what's the major reason or drivers to make the plant species be endangered. So the conventional factors, habitat loss, the overharvest, those factors are still the major drivers for the plants become rare and endangered in China. But recently, a lot of discussions for the climate change. So this is a very recent publication in Nature. According to their estimate, so actually if we follow the model, which means carbon emission that do as business as usual, then we will expect the big climate change in 2047. So only 34 years from now. It's very, very soon. Even the carbon can be stabilized, so the big change of the climate can be expected to occur in 2006-9. So one question would ask, okay, so since the climate change is such quick, whether plants that can move quickly enough to keep survive. So one of my colleagues, Richard, do a review research, and the answer is unfortunately no. So which means plants cannot move such quick in order to get escape. So there are a lot of literatures try to estimate the extinction risk from the climate change. So this is the one they estimate 15 to 37% of the species can get extinct due to climate change. So what are really coming? So the climate change really, it's a near future event. So it is estimated the climate change would be the top one reason that causes species extinction. So whether the human being make ourselves ready to meet this challenge, so this is a big challenge. So can the botanic garden, especially the conservation garden or conservation-oriented gardens, can really act as a Yolk's ark for plant conservation for this planet? So I draw some pictures so whether our botanic garden can something acting as a Yolk's ark. Well, basically, the climate change brings the new challenges and also opportunities to botanic garden community. So there are some literatures try to emphasize. So actually, we have a lot of interesting research can be done only within botanic garden. Or botanic garden, it's an ideal place to do such kind of research. So this is some literature from Richard primates and from John and Doyston to discuss about that. So phylogeny, physiology, and anatomy, invasive species, public awareness, and also assisted migration. So this is, I will discuss a little bit later on. So as I mentioned, since the plants cannot get escape from the quick climate change, so people may think that human being can provide assisted migration. So this is big debate whether it can work a lot. So this is a literature from Harvard. He said the wild conservation biologists actively debate whether we should intentionally provide assisted migration. It is clear that we have already done so for a large number of species. So this provides botanic garden a unique role can be played in the future. Still have the duet advertising for this symposium. So we have the symposium in January next year. The focus on the botanic garden and climate change. So all of you are welcome. So okay, so my second part is to discuss how to design and run a conservation garden. So we say since this is conservation-oriented, so garden should be located in the region with high alpha diversity and beta diversity, and probably the high possibility of the climate change and highly human disturbance. So which means the conservation garden, you cannot just locate it inside of the city. So this is a different purpose, different orientations. So this is information demonstrate. So as I mentioned before, the more than 3,000 species has fit into IUCN category. So actually, you can see this part of the region in China, they got high proportion of those endangered species. So it should be the area which conservation garden get much more high density to locate. So this is a research from the group from the Institute of Botany. So this is beta diversity of the tree species of China. We can easily see, especially for tree, so the significant correlation between the latitude, so which means the low latitude where high species composition turnover. So which means should request the high density of the botanic gardens in those tropical and subtropical area. So this is alpha diversity. It's slightly different, but basically similar pattern. So the low latitude got the high diversity. This is a very obvious. So which suggests so the more botanic garden should be located in those area. Sites. So since it's conservation oriented, we need to free of the being urbanized. Ideally surrounded by the natural forest or natural habitats. We need to relatively large area since we want to conserve a lot of species. And ideally, the site should have the many microhabitats, provide the opportunity to keeping different kind of plants. Other components for the general gardens, deep soil, water supply, and logistics are all important. So people may ask, well, so here you are talking about the new botanic garden. So how for the existing old botanic garden to provide the much more role in the conservation? So one suggestion would be you can think of get a kind of satellite garden, which is a more conservation focus. So actually, in terms of the area, the majority of our garden is not such big. So this is a literature demonstrate 10% of our garden from the more than roughly 500 botanic gardens, the sample size. So 10% of the garden, only 10% of the garden is higher than 100 hectares, while 70% of the garden less than 30 hectares. Majority of the garden are small garden. How to run conservation garden? So since it's conservation oriented, so the collections should be, you should have the very clear collection policy, should focus on the local plant species, should got more strict control of the quality of the sample, and you can adapt it to the species distribution modeling and the climate change modeling to understand, so what's in the near future, what kind of plant species need to be preserved. And now the genetic markers are very relevant, so that can be helping you to capture the genetic diversity and to understand the genetic integration in your collections. So this is quite a old literature that demonstrated actually it's in XTBG. So the one colleague indicate that because many years ago, we do the quite a proper sampling strategy to collect one of the endangered species Vitica, belong to the Dipterocarpaceae. So in our living collections, 88% of the genetic diversity in wild has been captured in our living collection, which is quite good. So this is another research from my colleagues in the Wuhan Botanic Garden. So these two species, it's two different species. No, it's this. This is a photograph. So basically, two species in the natural habitats, they are different. So they put in the garden. Actually, it's very nearby. So their research demonstrate actually the 32% of the seeds collect from collections get a hybrid. So the genetic integration is quite obvious in our living collections. Maintaining the conservation garden probably also slightly different to our normal garden. So we emphasize need to always organic recycling approach, make the garden more noisy, a lot of birds, butterfly, insects, more wild. So the proper intensity of the horticulture, because from the conservation perspective, how intensive of the horticulture we need. So that's a good question. So at least not all the garden needs a highly intensive horticulture. But people may argue, so no horticulture, how to attract the visitors. So we say on that case, we can promote sort of kind of landscape architecture approach to create a kind of a beautiful scenery to attract the visitors. Conservation garden is a good place to environment education and natural experiences. This is key issues for along the urbanization, especially for the kids. Sort of kind of natural experience deficiency, it's become very obvious. So this is just an example to show the one collections established in XTBG, a flowering garden. So we use the landscape approach. So not intensive horticulture, but still beautiful. So a lot of activities has been organized in some of botanic garden in China, such as bird watching. Now it becomes a movement in XTBG and also South China Botanic Garden, Wuhan Botanic Garden, Xiamen Botanic Garden, Fanny Lake Botanic Garden. Those provide a good opportunity both for those bird watching lovers and also for the kids to experience. So actually in XTBG, we have a record 200 bird species, which are another different bird species. The night watching is another very interesting attraction for natural experiences for some of the gardens, XTBG, and also Chengshan and Zhongshan, Jiangsu Botanic Gardens. So this is Firefly. So every year we have the Firefly Festival. For the city kids are very exciting to experience this. So for conservation garden, so we need to also emphasize the outreach and the research. So we need to provide the leadership, not only just participatory. We need to provide the leadership in the local diversity conservation, try to create the collective efforts for conservation to that region. We need to make ourselves always relevant to all the stakeholders, especially decision makers, because we understand that the policy sometimes it's more powerful than science in terms of the conservation. So we need to make ourselves a knowledge innovation center for conservation science. Actually, the Botanic Garden community, we are very, very honored to have the reputation for the research center, for taxonomy, for economic botany, but I don't think has been recognized as a center for knowledge innovation for conservation science. I have some statistics, but I do not bring to here. So we need to work hard for this aspect. Okay, the final part, I need to introduce briefly some initiative in China, which is related to my talk. So Sichuan-Bana, again briefly introduced, so this is a very interesting area with nearly 20,000 square kilometers, 1.2 million people. It's a tropical to subtropical, and only in the tropical rainforest occurred continually and preserved relatively well in China. And there's a small area but keeps a lot of plants and animals, 1/6 of the plants in China and 1/4 of the animals in this 500 in terms of the areas. And also cultural diversity. So it's 12 ethnic groups in this area. So we initiate called the Zero Extinction Program in Sichuan-Bana. So basically, we want to develop the theoretical understanding of the problem in this area. We want to identify practical solution to the problem, and then to build the capacity and public support. So all over, we wish to create a flagship conservation program for XTBG, and the model to using the entire conservation toolbox for regional biodiversity conservation. So basically, we need to assess the status of every native species in this region, such can set priority for conservation. And also, we need to prioritize the forest fragments, still remaining fragments, for in situ conservation. And also, we need in ex situ those endangered species, both by seeds and by the living collections. Initiate some reintroduction program, and also environment education. So this is actually the last year. So this is a 1-week workshop. So the group of the people collected, most are very knowledgeable for the plants in this region. So we checked the whole plant list one by one to put what kind of status for each species. Totally 4,200 species. So this is the result. We see so the different category of the endangered. We got the different species. And then we do the field survey, try to identify, first try to verify the distribution of the information, because those information is collected from the expertise. So we need to searching all those species in category 1 to 3, and then try to understand the distribution of the target species, adjust the degrees of category, propose a new production area, and also some new species and new distributions. And then we were created a proposal to the government to community-based management new protections, which is highly concentrated by the category 1 to 3 species. And we need to use living collections to preserve all the category 1 to 3. And some of them need to consider about the genetic diversity and the seed storage for all the 1 to 4. And introductions for some of the species 1 to 2. And then we use climate change modeling and space distribution modeling to understand those category 1 to 4. And then we create e-flora, and then to develop some environment program, environment education program, try to create a kind of more public participatory conservation. So for example, over 100 species of orchids in this region, among the 429 native orchids, has been put into our reintroduction program. So we have a big limestone forest where we can do our reintroduction program. And then we try to move those zero extinction program to the national level. We call it the Cover All Protection Initiative. Actually, as Steve just mentioned, this is a new initiative, the 6th of June this year. So the 3 ministries support the Chinese Union. And then this is our members, quite a good distribution throughout the country. So you can notice actually the botanic garden from the different systems, some from Chinese Canadian Sciences, some from forestry, some from horticulture, medicinal. So then we were, during the 2013 to 14, we will extend our zero extinction model with some modification to 4 botanic gardens areas. So actually the 1 week ago, we have the meeting to discuss the issue, try to select the botanic gardens. And then finally, we want to extend to the 25 to 30 botanic gardens through the country in order to achieve cover all protection. So in conclusion, the conservation-oriented garden may differ in its criteria and management strategy to traditional botanic gardens. Under the scenario of the climate change, conservation gardens may bring botanic garden community into the new era of the development, allowing botanic garden providing much more critical role in ensuring the sustainability of this planet. I'd like to thank the conference committee to invite me to give this talk, and thank my colleagues so very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping so well to time. So we have time for 1 or 2 quick questions. Yes.
Given the importance of China and the biodiversity in China, what do you think is the most important role for other international gardens to work with China? What can other nations do to work with China to preserve?
Well, I think the conservation of the native species in China surely is strongly based on our own capacity, but the international community can provide important role in terms of enhance our capacity. So actually, we initiate some training programs. Those training programs always think of try to bring our intelligence or expertise or resource persons from outside of China. Capacity building.
And we'll take one more here, I think. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your nice presentation. I'm from Korean National Forest. And you mentioned the bird watching and night watching, but I think you need to control numbers of visitors for conservation garden.
Control what?
You need to control the number of visitors to your botanical conservation garden for conservation. Do you have any idea?
Yes, so well, that's various. For some botanic garden, the capacity in terms of the receiving the visitors is very limited, while the visitors are not. But for some botanic garden, for example, XTPG, we have a big space, 900 hectares in area, so it doesn't matter. So space are enough.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks again, Chen Chen, for an excellent presentation.